What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick.
And I'm Ian.
Today we're talking about our top 3 albums of 2025. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So I feel like I say this every year, but I think 2025 has been a great year for music. I think the last probably 7 or 8 years, I think have been really incredible. So today we're going to go over our top 3 albums for 2025. I'm actually going to do a full top 10 plus a bunch of honorable mentions later next week, so make sure you check that one out also. I will say that my list has changed a lot over the year. Actually, within the last probably week and a half, my top 3 has even changed. So, it's been a really hard time. I've had a really hard time putting this list together because there's been so many incredible albums that have come out over the course of the year. But the album that I've got at number 3 is one that came out at the very beginning of the year. And for the longest time, I would say this is probably my number 1 album for the year for a good chunk of the year. This came out back on January 17th, and that is Balloonerism by Mac Miller. So it was actually recorded back in 2014. So he died in 2018. So technically, I guess this isn't really like a new album. So this was actually recorded back in 2014. So it was about 4 years before Mac died. So this was recorded right around the time he released his Faces EP, which I think a lot of people kind of look at as some of the best work he ever did. But this is a little bit of a different album from what he did on that other EP. This album is definitely a glimpse into this ever-evolving style that he was going through. And it has this lo-fi kind of jazz style production on it that gives it this really timeless feel. And that's why it doesn't feel like or sound like an album that was recorded back in 2014. I know he was in the process of at least trying to work on getting this released prior to his death. I know he had commissioned having the artwork worked on, but that was really kind of all he'd gotten to at that point. But it got shelved after his death. I don't really know why it did. At least I don't remember, at least off the top of my head, why it got shelved. But I'm glad it finally did get released. I know it's been slowly kind of bootlegged over the years. Nothing was officially released until earlier this year. But even listening to stuff that he did around this time, it sounds more intimate on this album. And it feels differently than other albums he did. And that's why I don't know if there was a more personal aspect to the songs he wrote on this. So I don't know if there's more of a connection he had with this music. And maybe that's why there was a longer wait to finally getting this released. But I'm glad it finally did because, it's an incredible album. I definitely put this up as one of the best albums he ever did. I know you're not a Mac Miller fan.
I don't even know his music.
I know you're not a rap fan. It's definitely a different style of rap music. But he was an absolute genius, and it really comes through on this album.
So for my number 3, it probably won't be a surprise, but it is kind of a surprise for me because as I've gone through the year with this album, sitting with this album, it was much lower on my list, in the 7-8 range for a long time. Kind of sitting with it and living with it a little bit more, listening to it more times, I was able to move it up farther, and it's Curious Ruminant by Jethro Tull. The issues I have with the album is it is essentially it's a solo album, more so than even the last 2 Jethro Tull albums. But the reason is not because it's stylistically Ian Anderson solo, because that's all it's ever been. It's the songwriting, the lyrics, the things that he wrote about. He doesn't usually write songs about himself or from his perspective. He's more of an observational singer. So he may apply certain parts of his personality into a song, but it's usually from an outside perspective. Whereas these songs are all him, and it's very unique. And maybe that's why it was hard for me to even like the album as much. And of course, there's questions about the quality of his singing. He's almost 80 years old.
That was my big issue with it.
It's more of a spoken word album, and it's fine to me. That doesn't bother me any, because when he's not trying to sing, he's fine. It's when he can kind of sing talk, it's fine. If he tried to sing it, it would sound worse. So musically, it's very subdued, and I really had to sit with it. But when I really break it down, it could probably be the last new material we ever get from him. And if that's the case, it's kind of unique in the way that it is more introspective and it is more of a personal album. And looking at it from that perspective as a essentially a lifelong fan of his music, I really feel like it moved up for me. But I did take a lot of listens to get there. If we had done this list back when it came out in March, it would maybe not even been in the top 10. But really being able to sit with the music and sit with the lyrics and try to really feel what he was feeling or trying to say. Lyrically, I think it's some of his best work in 20 years. Lyrically. Musically, it's right on par with what they've been doing, but it is very subdued. It's more acoustic. That's why another thing that makes it kind of more of a solo-ish album. But I think I've come to the point where it may be low in the catalog of Jethro Tull, but for the year, it was a lot higher for me.
So the album I got at number 2, I guess, is kind of along the same lines. It's one that I had ranked, I probably had it in my top 10 since it was released, but it was definitely a lot lower than number 2. And it wasn't really until, I'd say within the last probably week or two, that it's risen up to number 2. And it's one of those albums where I gave it a break. Like, I listened to it, of course, when it first came out, and I tried to give it a break. I gave it a good, I would say probably 6 weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, where I didn't listen to it as much. Tried to take a break, and it was intentional. And then I came back to it. And when I came back to this album, I felt like I connected to it more, and I understood it more. And the issues I had with it weren't as profound as they were before. I know a lot of fans are not fans of this album. They've been pretty critical of it, so they don't feel the same way as me. I know I've read lots of comments on social media about it. So this came out back on August 15th, and that is a new album from Rise Against. This is Ricochet, and I get it. Like, this is their 10th album. They said their 10th album was going to be very different than anything they released before, and they went with a different producer. And the mix on this album, when the first couple of singles came off of it, it sounds different. And they put a different kind of effect on the vocals. And the mix of it, when I first heard the first couple of singles, my first thought was, I'm not going to like this album. I wasn't a fan of the first couple of singles. And then when I heard the album, and I heard them on the album, I had a lot of the same criticisms that a lot of the fans do. And it was more so about the mix. And the album, the more I listen to this album, the more I don't notice those issues on there. Yes, it is very different. They went with, it's more of like almost a alt rock kind of sound on this album. And this is they're one of those bands that, yes, they're never going to release an album like The Sufferer and the Witness or, Endgame or any of those classic albums they released before. You're never going to get another one of those albums from Rise Against again. They're not that kind of band anymore. But it's one of those albums that I think once you get past the changes, I think you can really appreciate the quality on this album. And I think the title track is a great example. I think is one of those songs that I think is one of the best songs the band has written in, I think, 10 or 15 years. Bands have to evolve, and I think that a lot of fans have issues with that. And it's an album that I think had been released under, by pretty much any other band out there, I think a lot of fans would have a different opinion of it. I wasn't expecting it to be in the top 3, and here we are talking about it. I think it's probably their best album since Endgame in 2011.
So there you go. So, I mean, people might not like it or might have issues with the way it's done this way or that way, but it's a snapshot. Yeah. This is, 2025, Rise Against.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in the minority when I say that.
You might be. Yeah. I'm in the minority when it comes to most of my musical tastes.
Very true.
So my number 2, I'm going to butcher the artist's name. So fair warning. It's Lars Fredrik Forsli, I believe. He's Norwegian.
Why didn't you just Google it?
I did. I'm still butchering it, I'm sure, but
you didn't.
I did.
You didn't butcher how to pronounce it.
Firstly is how I'm getting it from how Google said to say it. But
okay, all right.
I could still be butchering it. Norwegian.
He's Norwegian. That's probably not even close then.
It could be. I'm just like I said. I did go off of what Google said. Because there's an O with the line through it, and
normally there's like a vocal pronunciation.
Yeah, I didn't do that. But he's a keyboard player. Multi-instrumentalist, but his primary instrument is keyboards, and he's a keyboardist for the band Wobbler, which I've mentioned many, many times. And
I feel like they just put on a new album now.
No, they haven't.
It
was that super group that several, including him, several members,
maybe they got
Chronicles of Father or something.
Maybe they had a album get reissued. I know I just saw that.
They might have.
Something came out with them.
Because they haven't released a new album since 2020, Wobbler. Okay. But they've had, like I said, the band members have been doing other things, and this is, I think, his second full-length solo album, and the lyrics are all in Norwegian, which is fine. It doesn't bother me. It would have 20 years ago. I could never have listened to it.
Yeah.
But I feel like my tastes have evolved a little bit, where it doesn't matter. And I have Googled some of the words that are in the songs to kind of get a rough idea of what the songs are about. But musically, it's progressive rock. It's old school progressive rock, something that could have easily been made in the 70s. Which is a lot of what Wobbler is.
Yeah.
And it's such a great album. It's an easy listen, even with the language barrier. It's an easy listen. I highly recommend it to anyone who can get past that, especially if you're a progressive rock fan. Just musically, it's top notch. I hope he keeps making solo albums like this, but I really would like to get a new Wobbler album. And his first solo album, which is in 2023. Which I didn't hear until recently, is awesome too. I mean, it would have been in my top 5 of 23 had I heard it before then. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not going to try with the name again. Go back and listen again, or you can just Google Wobbler. He's in there. Lars Fredrik
something
Firstly, okay. I think is how it's pronounced.
So for my number 1 album, if you've been watching the channel for a while, I've talked about this album several times now. I've posted about it a bunch of times in the Vinyl Dead Facebook group. This was released back on June 20th, and that is Idols by Youngblood. I was not expecting to enjoy this album as much as I have. This is the follow-up to his self-titled album, which I think came out in 2022, or 2023, which I thought was just kind of an okay album. So when this was getting announced, I didn't really know what to expect for it or from it. When it was kind of the same thing with the Rise Against album. When I listened to the singles,
they were just okay.
I thought they were just kind of okay. And then when I listened to this album, I was really impressed with it. It was very different than anything else he'd released before it. And Youngblood's gone through this really interesting evolution across his 4 studio albums, where when he started his career out, it was very much like a more modern pop punk sound. And he's even talked about it before doing interviews, where he always felt like there was this like outside pressure from producers, from record labels, to take these more like modern mainstream elements and
just do that
and put them in the music, whether it's like rap beats or something else, some kind of different element, and introduce them into his music. And this is the first time where he's able to put all that aside and just focus on doing what he wanted to do. And it ended up being a really good rock album. And it has this more like 90s British rock sound to it. It has more, you can definitely hear a Blur influence on there. Oasis, The Verve, even like, I think you can even hear like going back to like David Bowie. There's definitely some David Bowie influence on this album also. Very different than what I was expecting there to be on here. I know I got you to listen to it once.
You told me to listen to it, and I did. I thought it was decent. I've only listened to it one time. But usually I know within the first 2 or 3 songs if I'm going to continue on. And I listened to the whole thing, and I wouldn't say I was blown away because I don't really know his music before this. So this was really just very fresh for me to listen to. I had nothing to compare it to. And as like you said, kind of a throwback kind of rock album, yeah, I can see all that, and it was enjoyable to listen to.
I will say that I'm not a huge fan of, I know a lot of people have this tie with Ozzy with him because of, the Back to the Beginning special.
Well, they had obviously started a friendship together.
And a lot of that started because of the music video they did together for his self-titled album. And a lot of people have the tie between, and a lot of people are saying that he's like a industry plant because of the Ozzy ties, and that's not the case. His career goes back long before any of that. And if you go back and listen, like I said, there's a very clear evolution in his sound. And this is part 1 of, a 2-part project that he's doing. He also did just release a new EP with Aerosmith, which I thought was really good. The first single off of it was probably the best thing Aerosmith has done in a very, very long time.
Which isn't saying much.
Which isn't saying much. It's the first it's the first new music that Aerosmith has released in over a decade. Right. So
I haven't listened to those yet, but I haven't been intending to.
Mandy and I did a reaction video for the first single.
Okay.
Yeah. It was really good. Like I said, best thing Aerosmith has done in a very long time. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see where his career goes after Idols. But it's been a long time since we've had somebody in rock music with that, a younger person with that like bigger than life persona, and actually be, at least from the outside looking in, a decent person. So it's nice to see him kind of being elevated, at least in the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. So my number one of the year is probably not terribly surprising, but I almost didn't put it on the list because technically half of it was released as an EP 4 years ago. Giving it some consideration, I felt that as a whole, it was released in 2025, and that's Buttermiracle, The Complete Suites by Counting Crows. Guess it came out in May 9th. Counting Crows they're not redesigning the wheel in any way, but they are consistently putting out albums with really good songs, and that's exactly what this is. As a complete set, I don't know how they fit together lyrically or story-wise, because I don't really see the second half that actually was new this year as a suite. First part's definitely a suite, but the songs that were released now are more, to me, just individual songs. They do have an underlying theme, I think, about fame and wanting to be a rock star, things like that. So there's probably a story there. I don't really know what it is. But they're just really, really good songs. And I would say it's probably some of their best work. I don't know if they've really done a bad album, in my opinion.
At least their best work in a while, for sure.
Well, I mean, to be fair, their last album came out in 2014. That's a good album. That's got every song on that. There's not a skippable track on that album either. But it was a bit more subdued compared to what they released. So they're very sporadic. They are 2008, then 2014, and then 2021 for an EP, waiting to 25 for a new album. So that's 3 albums in 17 years. That's not a lot of output.
They're almost as bad as The Cure.
Almost. Well, I mean, arguably, there's a lot of comparisons been made to them. Not musically, but poetically, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I love the album. It's probably the album I've listened to the most this year overall. Because when I first got it, I don't think it came out. I had the CD. It didn't come out of my car for a month and a half. I took a trip to Tennessee the way down. That's pretty much all I listened to. That's why I felt it really had to go with my number one for the year.
Well, that's all we got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop us a comment down below. Let us know what your top 3 albums of 2025 were. Like I said, I thought it was a great year for music. A lot of great albums that came out. So it was a tough year to put a list together. At least I thought. Make sure you come back and check out my full top 10 plus that I'll have out next week. But let us know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all we got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Keep on spinning. Peace.